Hey, what's going on, guys? It's me, Aiden, from Cartoon Apocalypse, and welcome back to Turner Tuesday. Now, this week was yet another productive week. This style of just going through a bunch of questions and then answering those questions really seems to work quite well, and we get a lot done in these streams now. Now, as always, I try to include answers for every question, but not all of those are like audio-based, so you do have to do some looking for some questions because there's just no interesting clips for them. But yeah, I tried my best, but since it was so productive again, I couldn't include all the conversations that we had. So if you want all of the conversations, go check out the stream because it is still up. As far as next week, we're going to be doing the Elarian education system, so this should be really interesting. Also, there won't be any cuts of me that often, there will only be a couple, I think. So let's just go ahead and hop right into this first section. Now, this first section is where I'm just clarifying something about the Monster Islands because people had different perspectives as what exactly they were, so I was just clarifying what exactly Monster Islands are. Can we all agree that the Monster Islands is going to be a cluster of 4, 5, 6 islands that make up the size of like an average mainland island that Elarians have? So it's like one of the 9 main islands makes up the size of the Monster Islands. So yeah, okay, we can all agree on that. Alright, I think... Okay, because that helps clarify a lot, because some people were like, oh, well, it should just be other smaller islands, and then other people were like, well, it should be full, like, main islands. So yeah, okay, that's good. Alright, so from here on out, we're just going over basic questions, except for this first section. This first section is describing just what a whisperer is, and then we just basically go off the questions. Who are the whisperers? The whisperers are the people who, they're like, okay, well, I guess it's not like 100% confirmed, but I think it would be cool if the whisperers are the king's personal knight group. So maybe there's 9 knights in this knight group. They are the king's personal knights, but they're also the whisperers, and the whisperers are the people who sort of watch over the governors, or not, the administrators of each island, so they can go through like the government building on each island, and so they have complete power over the governor, but the king, or not the administrator, but the king gives them orders not to make any rules or not to do anything. It's just if they see that the administrators are doing something that the king doesn't like or the king doesn't think he would like, then the whisperers have authority to be like, no, change that, get rid of that, do something about that, because that's not what the king would want. And then the administrators would have to obey, because that's just how it is. Now, I would think that the administrators would hate the whisperers, because the whisperers just come and go as they please. They have more power, but they don't really do anything, and the administrators are like, man, these guys are so annoying. If I do something, they're going to tell me to change it. Good. So we've got the king, the whisperers, the administrators, and then the administrators are like the governors. And then depending on the island, do they break it up into mayors and each town has a mayor? I would think that there would definitely be some sort of mayor representative of each town, so that way the administrators don't just talk directly to like the entire town and doesn't govern each individual town. So I think each town should have a mayor. Yes, the administrators are in charge of the whole island. And each whisperer is also in charge of an entire island. So like maybe Rico, for example, he's one of the king's 9 knights. So Rico has control over one island, right? And then, but he doesn't do anything. Rico doesn't do anything. He's just watching over the administrators, and if the administrators does something that he doesn't think the king would like, then Rico's gonna go in there and whisper, like, hey, change that right now. Something like that. Maybe the whisperers could have special powers, like going through walls or being invisible. Well, how cool, that would definitely be cool, but we sort of still have to talk about what magic is and how it all works and whatnot. So, yeah, I don't know. Make Rico a side character. Well, maybe, you know what, who knows? Maybe Rico could be one of the actual main knights. Who knows? But, Yeah, okay, so let's definitely have mayor somewhere down the line, and this is going to be the lowest one. Executives that report to the administrators. So maybe it goes administrators, executives, mayor. This is the lowest level. The king's obviously the highest level. King has final say if needed, because this implies that the governors or the administrators don't need the king to give a final say, but the king still can give the final say if he needs to step in and give a final say. The administrators can have control, but they have to make a report that the whisperers can give to the king, who can then change anything. No, I still think the administrators, like, obviously if there is something that's changing, like if they're adding a new law, then they're going to report it to the king. Like, it's not like the king's not going to know, but it's not like the king doesn't have to check. Maybe there's like this weekly or monthly report that the administrators send off to the whisperers. Then the whisperers can read it over, and then they're like, okay, well, I want the king to look over this. Then they can move it on to the king. If the whisperers are like, okay, whatever, this is all good, then they can just toss the papers because they don't need it anymore and they're fine with it. But it's not like the administrators need to get approval from the king/whisperers. They do what they want, but they do give reports and say, okay, well, this is what I did this week. Here's what's changing. Here's, this and that. I think the whisperers should be loyal, or should be so loyal, they would already know what to do to say, or know what to say to make the king's wishes true. Yeah, that's sort of the idea, is that they are like the king 2.0. They know what the king would want, or at least hopefully good enough to where the king's satisfied. It's like the king can trust them to make the right decision. So, yeah, unless if something's like really controversial that the governors/administrators did, then the whisperers are going to be the ones who are mainly looking over like the weekly or monthly reports. So only if it's like something huge, then they would maybe forward it to the king, probably. Then in simple terms, the king only deals with international problems, whereas the whisperers take care of local problems. That's a good way to put it. Well, okay, here's a question. Should there be a couple different, this is maybe, these knights are for the people in power. The people in power directly serve these knights. Maybe there's a whole separate knight scheme that is mainly for fighting and combat and stuff like that. Like, these are just the police and the people guarding the people in power and whatnot. So they're pretty boring. There's not as many of these guys. But then there's like the Explorer Knights and the Scout Knights and stuff like that, who are actually on guard for any monsters that may attack. And if that's the case, then it makes more sense for there to be fairly frequent monster attacks, not like every day kind of thing, but like once every couple of weeks sort of attacks, like enough to justify having guards posted around or the island. I think if we have a whole separate chain of knights, then there needs to, the public needs to know, hey, there's monster islands out there. Which, I mean, being realistic here, if there is monster attacks, it's not like the public's not gonna know. If monsters are attacking a small little village, people aren't gonna be like, oh, it was just a play, or whatever. No, it was obviously a monster attack, so there's obviously something out there. So it's not I definitely think it makes sense for people to know, yeah, there's monsters out there. So we've just gotta have people on guard. Chat's broken? Well, why don't you, refresh the page or, close out of the YouTube app or whatever, and then open it back up. So I think if there is a second, ranking, and this is more for combat, Elite Knights are still gonna be at the top. Elite Knights are at the top of both knight chains. Oh, trainers could be retired knights who have a lot of experience and would actually know how to teach good. Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, I would still think the scouting knights and the militia knights would have power or authority over the trainer knights, because the only job that the trainer knights have at this point, since they're retired, is to train newbie knights. And so they're not actually like doing any service right now. Even though they might have more power than some of the militia or scouting knights, they don't have more authority. Does that make sense? I assume it would be the wealthier should be taxed more, and the more money you income tax. I think wealth tax and income tax are probably the best bet for right now. Sales tax, I just can't see that in a fantasy setting. Maybe that's just me, but yeah. But anyway, guys, that's gonna be it for this video. If you did enjoy, you can leave a like and subscribe for more content similar to this, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.